It was a hot day in August. I walked out of the San Francisco office and reread the paper in my hand. No offer. I was the only one in my internship class that didn't get the return offer. There were no tears in my eyes. I was just stunned. I was embarrassed and repeatedly told myself maybe there's something better out there for me and maybe this wasn't meant to be. I kept asking the same question in my head. What went wrong? How could I have changed the outcome? And am I not good enough? As an international student, this wasn't just a rejection. It felt like my entire life was shaking. When my first internship in the United States didn't go well, I got anxious. My parents sacrificed so much for my education. This can't be happening. Am I going to be one of my biggest failures? A disappointment? A loser? Fast forward 9 months into my new job, something extraordinary happened. I was leading, selected for National Staff Council, and received the highest possible performance rating that year. Hello, this is Yujin. I'm a management consultant based in Boston. But more importantly, I'm someone who turned a career heartbreak into an opportunity. Today, I'll share the exact mindset and habits that turned me from an overlooked intern into a recognized leader. If you ever felt invisible at work or wondered whether you're good enough, this video is for you. The tips you're about to see are sequenced from easy to hard. By the end of this video, you'll have the general tools to get ahead. Let's shift the narrative from waiting to be recognized to taking full control of your narrative. As I think about what went wrong that summer, I only had one formal feedback session, and that was towards the end. And by that time, it was too late to change anything. The hiring team have already made their decision, so there was nothing left for me to do. While getting feedback is important, how you ask for feedback is just as important. In one of my lectures from Professor Adam Grant at the Wharton Business School, he said that during feedback sessions, you should use forward-looking questions instead of backward-looking. And let me explain what he meant by that. So instead of asking, how did I do? You can reframe this by asking, what can I do better in the future? So you see the subtle difference? The former question makes the reviewer really easy to pick apart and find something small even that could be considered a flaw. On the other hand, the latter question focuses more on what you can build upon. This is something I consider my strength. How can I improve on this? Personally, I schedule these calls for about 15 minutes, always come prepared, and actually never use the word feedback. To me, the word feedback carries a negative connotation. So instead, I like to use the word advice. Hey, thanks for making time today. I would love to get your thoughts given your experience in X, Y, and Z. I love your client presence. How can it be more like you? I see myself growing at the company and the team. What advice do you have for me at my tenure? Now on to the next one. This tip is something that my father taught me. Use your weekends wisely, and especially your Sunday evenings. 7:30 p.m. on Sunday nights. This is a time I use to put on a face mask and look at the calendar for the week ahead so I mentally ground myself and also review anything that I have missed the prior week. Your work week can get really hectic, especially if you have a full-time job and a personal life and a YouTube channel. So using just an hour or two can help set the tone for the rest of the week. I'm not saying that you should be sending out emails at this time and calendar invites to seem very eager. No, it's more about creating space for yourself to think. Think what's important. What matters most now? This Monday morning confidence was almost immediate. While others were catching up over the weekend, I felt like I was few steps ahead. And in fact, I'm filming this video on a Monday morning before work. At one point, I had this review line from one of my review notes. Speak up more, Yujin. As a woman trying to work in the workplace, I wanted to be respectful, to not step on anyone's toes or cut anyone off during a meeting. Be polite was what I was told my whole life. But then by 30 minutes into the meeting, I found myself that I haven't said anything. I was listening, waiting for that right moment to jump in, and the meeting just ended. Nothing changed. To get myself more heard and seen, I started to ask and anticipate answers, especially the answers. Think of yourself as a chess player trying to see several moves ahead. Push yourself to think and identify the assumptions, question every little detail, and prepare to justify the data that you have. So every time you raise a question, always have an opinion, because you never know. What if they say, oh, good question, Yujin. What do you think? If you stay quiet, people naturally assume that you have nothing to contribute. But we both know that's not the case, right? Let's be solution-oriented. Now, the next tip. This one was actually one of the hardest ones for me to transition as a Korean. In Korea, we have this thing called 존댓말. It's a type of speech that you use to show your respect to your elders. So if you've ever met a Korean before, you might recognize that they ask you, 혹시 몇 살이세요? It's typically their way of saying, how old are you? Should I start using 존댓말 to you? So that culture was very much embedded in how I grew up. That carried over in my internship too. So I thought to myself, well, I'm just an intern. I should stay in my lane. And that was a mistake for me. I was scared to challenge anyone's opinion as an intern. I thought that maybe I should only do that at a certain point in my career, when I'm more tenured, when I have more experience, and when I feel more confident. I felt like maybe asking a question or saying that I disagree with something was challenging authority. But that really isn't the case. You should practice your obligation to dissent. In my next job, I really worked on how I carry myself. I treated everyone, even senior leaders and executives, just like another colleague. And I guess that's kind of the best thing about being in America, where you just call each other by their names. And treating everyone as your peer isn't being arrogant. It just means that you're comfortable asking questions and confident in bringing in your ideas. And the truth is, the work becomes a lot more easy and enjoyable when you treat whoever you work with as friends and peers. Despite your age and experience, you will be bringing in fresh perspective. So really believe in that and be comfortable in sharing what you have in mind. Think of everyone else as a thought partner, not a teacher or a boss in the most traditional sense. Once I started acting as a valuable team member, people saw me as one. If you've ever seen my 10 lessons from Berkeley, then you know the importance of how much I emphasize who you know. While I agree that knowledge is very important, who you know matters just as much or even more in your life. And let me just give you an example. After feeling really down about my summer internship not going very well, I was actually really worried that I might not have a full-time job. I found it through a word of mouth and was referred by someone who actually saw my potential. So really get to know your coworkers and everyone else in your life. I'm not suggesting to use every single opportunity as a means of transaction. What can I get out of this person? No, that's definitely not what I'm suggesting that you do. Instead of thinking networking as a chore, shift your mindset as an opportunity to get to know your peers, your coworkers as friends, as someone that you can rely on. You can start by asking their birthdays, their anniversaries, about their kids, hobbies, and what they like to do outside of work. You might be asking, Yujin, shouldn't it be enough if I'm good in my job? Yes, but I also learned that people support those they know. So the example I gave you before was 10 years ago, nearly a decade ago. But things really haven't changed. Last month, I got an outreach from a recruiter saying that a director that I worked with 2 years ago put in a really good word and said I'd be a perfect candidate for this. And this was a job opening that was also not publicly available. Do you see where I'm going? If you're too nervous to ask for a coffee chat, start by asking for advice. These chats built my visibility. When an opportunity came up, people thought of me. Oh, I spoke with Yujin about this last month or a few weeks ago. Let me hit her up. Please protect your reputation. So I learned this from Wharton when I was a teaching assistant for one of my favorite professors. Reputation works like multiplication. Building a reputation takes time. You gotta build your currency. You can't just ask for someone's help without having done nothing for them. You need to earn your stripes. Work hard and make sure the quality of your work speaks for itself. I started treating even the small tasks to heart. The emails, the presentations, and even Excel spreadsheets that had my name on it. Especially earlier on in your career, you have fewer chances to make up for a mistake. Remember what happened with me in the internship? One bad mistake and people stopped looking for me. Once you start building your reputation, things become a little easier. You feel like you have a place at the company, your team. They look at you differently and treat you differently. At one point, one of my bosses said, well, Yujin, you did this. I know your work quality. We can present this as it is. Also remember to capture every details. I have a few videos on tips for both digital and handwritten notes, so you can go find them here. I really believe in the power of documenting. I even have a separate note folder with all the details I talk about with people about their birthdays, their hobbies. Remember what I mentioned about keeping track of your conversations with people? And it's also important to track what you did well. So it really gives you a confidence boost. And I also started keeping a better diary on all the things that I learned on a daily basis. These seem small, but these habits will accumulate over time. And at the end of the day, please don't be too hard on yourself. While working hard for your goal is great, I caution you that associating your self-worth with your job can be very dangerous and bad for your mental health. You are more than your resume. Mistakes happen at work. Yes, that's okay. Recognize them, fix them, and don't beat yourself up. If you found this video insightful, please give a little thumbs up below and share it with someone who would find it helpful as well. Are there any other tips that you want to share? Please leave your tips in the comments below. And remember to come back to my next video topic on...
Let's go! It's time to be the GOAT. It's time to enter God mode, man, let's get it going. I wanna be the greatest, energy is overflowing. I know I'm stoking the fire.